do have a pretty interesting looking sky. The seasons are changing. And also feels different, kind of strange, but it's positive. Mr. Cat doesn't like to be inspected. It looks pretty, I think. Different colors now. I should mention that there is a plan in preparation of Montanera, when these guys will go out to eat acorns, to create more structures there. We need basically 2 smaller pens where the device that, like a squeeze chute, that holds them in place for the vet to vaccinate them and also draw blood, which is required to do some analysis. So where the vet can work. And so the idea is to make 2 smaller things there, have the squeeze chute in between, and that means to add a door there, and another door there, where they then can go out. So this is a little construction project. Now that it's getting cooler, that is possible, but of course I need to run out and get this kind of fence posts and not the very small one here. I have these, but the other ones, they last time were hard to get, but these also work. I can cut them into 3 pieces. It's the same diameter as these, so there's that we need to do. And this needs to be done before November, when the acorn season starts. I just did a little bit more maintenance in here. This time with this tool that has a knife, because this stuff is very hard. It's woody. A goat would like it, but a goat would also decimate the Paulownia trees, which is why they are not an option at this stage. So I chopped down all this. This is chopped down. This will wither, but for now it looks alive. This might still be connected, so maybe now when I put away the camera, I can knock this over. But you see here, all this is now also cut. And yeah, so there you see tree number 1, number 2 and number 3. They did not make it, and there are no offshoots from below, but we have here several. And if this continues to be like that, I just climbed up on this wall here. If it continues to be like that, then this is either an open grassy area right here, which is also okay, or I add 2 more trees next round, depending on how everything else develops. So that's an option. But if the grasses conquer this area, then there is no harm. Then I will simply remove the tree trunks here, the stumps, and put maybe a structure here. Well, could be an option. What, for example, I could do, thinking out loud, is over there is going to be the door, a main door. I could see some roof here, just a roof, and this then becomes the feeding station. Would be an option. So I put the barrels with feed there along the fence once it exists, and then use the area here to put the bowls for each dog. So that feed will be provided here, because I need a space somehow for this. Originally I was thinking about putting a container there, but I don't like containers anymore. I think a wooden structure is much nicer. And of course a wooden structure also has another element to it. People around here don't like to do anything with wood because according to them it's weak, it rots, and it's not for this climate and so on. But I mentioned this before, there is a Spanish product called Xylacell, and this product protects the wood from UV rays, and that is what you need to do, and then wood does not decay. This is something that people here do not know, but I do, and the local supplier for wood does have it, and that's how I learned it. So it is available. So I think I might do some pergola-like thing there instead of these 3 trees, and then the area here at front becomes the feeding area. Oh, it could be nice, and I guess that's a good idea. It's a smallish project that is easy to achieve. I think that makes sense. I need to go to cut somewhere else as well before it gets too dark. The sun is still high, but it's cloudy, and it's quite nice. It's quite comfortable because it's half shade, still warm, and in comparison to earlier it feels cold. But it's okay for my job that I want to do. To give you an idea what I'm doing right now, so this is where I was, and I am trying to make soil by cutting down these pioneer species that have shown up on bare ground between the Paulownia trees. And keep in mind, I loosened up the soil with the excavator before, and therefore I think the Paulownias are growing as they are, but also the other species have shown up. The Paulownia grow that fast that they will outcompete the pioneer species, but any other tree would lose. And any other tree would need some sort of a protection. For example, these tubes that people use so that the tree can continue to grow without being overwhelmed. But on the other hand, you still need to do some maintenance, because of all the other stuff, let me take you here, grows like this, which is not very common, then of course the tree in a tube in there would still be outshaded. So you do need to do some maintenance, or use a species that grows very, very fast and stays on top. And if you look closely at the bottom of these trees, nothing grows, because there the tree outshades. They grow around the perimeter, and that's okay. And I'm now helping a little bit, so I get the biomass on top of the soil. It will rot there, incorporate, and the irrigation continues to help with that process. And that way I get a organic layer on top, this A layer, and the A layer is missing. The other soil horizons, they might be there, but what is exposed is usually, I think it's the G layer. It's below the A, below the other layer, and that's what is exposed. But of course, pioneer species can still grow there, as you see, given that there is water. And so I'm fixing this by using the tools that work in my situation. Keep in mind, in my situation. I'm not saying, oh, this is how you do it everywhere. No. It works here, and it works for me. And it might work at the neighbors. And maybe at the neighbors of the neighbor of the neighbor, maybe. But don't export this idea to somewhere else. That's the same thing about swales. They have their reason for being. So they do good things, but they have not worked for me. And that does not mean that swales do not work. They do work. But you need to have the right situation, the right context. As with all other methods. So don't become a salad. That is basically what I'm trying to express. So I continue to cut my way through there, and I remove all this, because it's also now making seed, or has already, it doesn't matter. It will be outshaded again when these trees have grown big. And what's the future of this? Well, I guess the idea behind this line of Paulownia trees, goes all the way down there, is to have a windbreak, but wind is not so much the issue, but have a shade wall. So once they are big, let's say as tall, think about trees further down, then the shade will be cast to the right, because south is to the left. And then more things can work there. And yeah, that's the reason why Mr. Cat has not received his food yet. If you look there to the left at the tree, there is a hen, and it's always the same one. She chases Mr. Cat away because she thinks I will provide food, cat food, and she likes cat food. It's protein. But until she leaves the area, Mr. Cat will not get his food. He knows that. He might not be very happy with that. But I have no intention to feed cat food to the hen. They have their own food, and they should forage bugs, which are protein. So she runs away because nothing happens. So there's Mr. Cat. So I will continue cutting here, and to keep this more or less open, and that way hopefully I get also some grasses. And once these trees are bigger, geese and chicken can be in here, and then it becomes a system. So that is the first step. And the animal lane there is to move animals from one place to another. It is 4 meters wide, so I can also use a tractor or an excavator and pass through there. So I do see some machinery in the future, so that this becomes a one-person job, whatever task there might be. And I also do hope that we can offer opportunities in the future for people who like to spend a month or two or longer here, including some form of employment, temporary, short term. So if someone is from Europe, then that's definitely a possibility. But I have to say, first we need to get the housing situation sorted out, so that it's a little bit nicer than it is right now. But of course, participating in that as a paid job, yes, that's also an option. Especially now that it gets a bit cooler and we are not in 40 degrees heat anymore. The housing that we have does work until it gets too cold for the actual winter. And then again, during spring. So if that's something that might be interesting to you, send an email. Or simply write a comment. And I will certainly look into it. And that is part of the idea. So, no full-time employees anymore, does not work. But instead, an alliance of the willing, to put it that way. So, people who are emotionally invested, who like to do this, can be volunteers, can be paid work, it depends, and some well laid out projects. I think that is a better way. And of course the velocity is the velocity it is. So we will not do crazy stunts to get something done for getting it done. This, after all, is a side project. I need to focus on my actual work, which also finances the whole show. So that's how it is. Look what I just found. And I did not cut it by accident, but almost. One of the Paulownia trees. And this is basically where I stopped excavating. So there is another one that is also smaller than the others, further ahead. And this is basically where I stopped excavating, because underneath here there is a water line. It's the grey water line that goes from the house to the pond to the left. And obviously I could not continue digging here. So this one that is taller is planted in still loosened up soil, while this one sits in a spot where the soil is compacted, but it's very, very moist. And the one that I planted here died because it's too moist. After all, despite the information that I got early on from the previous owner, we have a lot of clay. And he said, no, there's nothing like clay. Yeah, because he never saw it wet. He always saw it dry. Therefore. So there was a tree, a Paulownia here. And the next one there, planted at the same time as the other ones. You look how tiny it is. So this needs to spend a lot of energy below and somehow get through that hard soil. As the next one. Well, the ones that are a bit older, they are to the right. They're also lagging behind, but at least they managed. I hope they will all manage, because that's part of the idea here. But you see the difference. So this is where I did not excavate. Well, it becomes very, very clear that I do need to excavate if I want to have any luck with these Paulownia trees. And actually, I looked around what options I have here in Spain to get an actual excavator, and I need to have some conversations, and maybe I can even lease one. So then I don't have this huge upfront expense, because these things are expensive. So even a cheap one is still something like 45,000 euros. So this is not something that you just spend, unless you have a business that has no expense but makes 200 grand a year. Then you might be able to do this. But there was a pandemic and resources became tighter. So let's not go deep into that. But you see, this one is a survivor. And now that I cut away the other things that were shading it out, I hope it will use the last remaining weeks of sun and heat to establish well before the colder part of the year comes. These are hybrids. They can survive frost, but not after they started to make leaves. Then that kills them. But if they shut down, lost their leaves, and the frost comes, they will survive. That's not a problem. She runs away. I think you don't need an explanation of what you just saw. It's not very nice, but that's how it goes amongst chickens.